Thank you for having me. Thank you all for listening to me. I was a little nervous about my talk because I was listening to this great energy in the room and this great positive thinking, and I was somewhat concerned that I'm going to bring a little bit of ugliness into this conversation. But it is a positive conversation because if you don't see it, how would you ever change it? And so on this, I will talk about Think Beyond Plastic. Think Beyond Plastic is an innovation accelerator with focus on plastic pollution. I'm the founder with my colleague and partner and life partner, Greg Baxter, who is the co-founder. And we started this organization after 8 years of working on the advocacy side on plastic pollution. Why do we care about plastic pollution? Well, plastic is a great material to start with. If you look around, you will see a ton of plastic around you. I saw so much in our room last night. I've seen it everywhere here in the hotel. There's so much of it that you don't even see it. This is plastic. Your pens are plastic. Most of the stuff you see around you that is plastic is single-use and disposable plastic intended specifically to be thrown away. So much do we love plastic that our consumption of plastic as a society has grown exponentially. This all started at the end of the Second World War, where plastic was introduced as a material to replace natural materials like leather, like silk. It was necessary for the war effort. That was the excuse then. Since then, plastic has entered in almost every aspect of our life. It's convenient, it is lightweight, it is very cheap. And there is obviously nothing you can't make out of plastic. In the 60s, it was a big design element. It was actually featured in several design magazines, and it became a subject of great beauty. The colorful plastic got invented and introduced then. We have furniture made of plastic. Today, plastic is about 256 million tons. And of this, most of the plastic that's produced is single-use and disposable plastic, specifically made to be thrown away. This is not disposable plastic. This is something that will be used over and over again. What is disposable plastic is lids and cups and straws and pens and plastic utensils. And then we go on with microbeads and all of that stuff I will talk about. So why is this a problem? Well, if you're in the plastics industry, it's not a problem. It's an awesome business. People have made a lot of money. There are two huge industries behind this hockey curve. There is the plastics industry, which is about $500 billion industry today, and there is the chemical industry, which is untold hundreds of billions. The industry employs hundreds of thousands of people around the world, in the United States and in Europe and elsewhere, and is doing very well. So well that actually they've created a product with no end-of-life plan. The only end-of-life for plastic today is recycling. And recycling has been a very deliberate marketing approach on behalf of the plastics industry because recycling has put the onus on you, the consumer. Do you know that in the 70s, recycling was actually something that the companies committed to do themselves? They had voluntarily committed to have a quota of the plastic that they produced to be of recycled material that they would collect, that they would subsidize the collection and use. Well, that never happened because it cost them money. So if you think a little bit about the recycling message and the recycling mantra, it's on you, the consumer. The reality is that there is no way you can ever collect every piece of plastic, even if it's recyclable, and send it for recycling. And there is a dirty story behind recycling too, which if I have time I'll talk about. So what has happened? Because we're unable to collect our plastic, because we have no end-of-life plan other than recycling, we have seen, we've become familiar with pictures like this. Now, Tara warned me not to show any gruesome pictures, so I stayed away from the gruesome pictures, but this is some that many of you have seen. And many of you have heard by now about the fate of the Laysan albatross. The albatross birds live on the Midway Island, which is about as far from human civilization and plastic use as you can imagine. And what scientists have found out that out of 400,000 albatross birds born every year, 50% of them, 200,000, die in infancy with their stomachs full of plastic. The reason they do this is because their parents feed them with plastic, which looks like plankton. It's bright, it's beautiful, colorful. So when their stomach's filled with plastic, they cannot regurgitate, they cannot drink, they cannot eat. There is no space. Where do they find it? In the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, in the middle of the ocean. Plastic has also given us dams and waterways full of single-use and disposable trash. This is the Vacha Dam, which is a dam from Bulgaria, where I was born, one of the most beautiful places in the country. 20 years ago, when I left this country, we used to go there by boat and enjoy the natural beauty. That's what it looks like right now. This is one of many, by the way. This is not only in Bulgaria. If you go to China, if you go to Central America, if you go to India, you will see waterways full of plastic like this. You will see children playing by rivers of waste. This is a river of plastic in Manila. And children play along it because some of the pieces are colorful and they make playthings. Why is this happening? Do you know that plastic lasts forever? I think there is a lady who is a chemical engineer here, and I'm sure you know that. But for the most part, I found out that people don't realize this. Plastic is a material that lasts forever. Every bit of plastic ever made is still with us on this planet. It might break down into smaller pieces, but it never goes away. So when you consume a lot of plastic, and when there is no way to collect it and do something with it, it results in these visible accumulations of plastic trash. And this is what we're seeing all over the world. Plastic like this, plastic trash like this is on almost every beach around the world. This happens to be in Puerto Rico. Beaches like this are in Manila, in Costa Rica, we've seen them literally around the world. And this is not a beach result of people going and picnicking there and throwing their stuff away. This is plastic that the ocean currents bring over because it's already in the water. So no matter how many times you clean this beach, it will always look like this, or it will look like this within a month, or within however long it takes to bring that stuff from the water. Plastic trash is not only in our communities, it's in every supermarket. If you look at this shelf, you will recognize it because it's the supermarket where you shop. Yes, even Whole Foods, and probably more than most is Trader Joe's. I mean, look at their plastic packaging. Everything is packaged in plastic, from apples to cucumbers to produce, things that don't necessarily need plastic packaging. So this is in every supermarket, not just in the United States and around the world. Plastic trash is there as well. And last but not least, it's in our bodies. About 4 years ago or so, Environmental Working Group did a study on newborn babies, on the umbilical cord of the newborn babies, and they found in each and every one of them hundreds of chemicals, most of them associated with plastic. Bisphenol A, some phthalates, stuff like that. There were flame retardants there as well. So this is umbilical cord of babies who are just born. The only way they have received this is through their mother. The reality is that each and every one of us carries bisphenol A. Bisphenol A is a chemical that is used by the plastics industry to soften plastic and to make the plastic products, bottles, cups, all that stuff. In order for this product to be made into the shape we use, or for the color to be added to it, or to be rigid or flexible, the plastics industry or the company that manufactures the product adds what is kind of commonly referred to as plasticizers. But they are well-known and documented chemicals with carcinogenic properties. They are directly connected to breast cancer, which is what my partner Greg works on. They're connected to diabetes and obesity. And in men, they're related to infertility. On the island of Tuvalu, where there is no proper disposal of plastic, as by the way on all islands that we've been, men usually involved in incineration of plastic trash, these men are developing breasts. And it's because when plastic burns, it's rich in estrogenic compounds. So burning of plastic doesn't mean it goes away, it just means that it releases toxic particulate matter in the air. And when you breathe it, it affects your body in the same way as if you were taking it from the water or you're drinking water that's been contained in these bottles. So this is what 50 years of unfettered plastic production has done to us. And as a result of this, it's created a public sentiment that simply put says plastic sucks. And it's a reflection of the fact that people will feel helpless to do anything about it. In the face of a big industry that says this is just fine, all you need to do is recycle, and make you feel bad when you're unable to recycle everything. As a result of this, hundreds of advocacy organizations have begun outreach and education. I started one of these organizations. It's called Plastic Pollution Coalition back in 2006. Now, I'm not a professional environmentalist. My background is in business. I've spent 20 years in Silicon Valley starting and running businesses, starting companies, and this was a labor of love. It was something that I felt was necessary because as a business pragmatic person, I was thinking, if everybody knew about how dangerous plastic is, surely people will stop using it. And that was kind of Silicon Valley naivete and cockiness at the same time, because we thought that, logic solves everything. Turns out I was wrong. And after 6 years of working at the forefront of education and outreach, the organization grew to about 400 members. We came to the realization that just telling people how bad plastic is not enough. And we got this loud and clear from industry, we got this loud and clear from the community. People said, give me alternatives. So it's easy. I will not use a plastic bag, okay. What am I going to do about plastic bottle? What am I going to do about packaging my products? What am I going to do as a provider, as a service provider, as some of you are, if all of my materials come packaged in plastic? I know that they have phthalates, and I know that they have microbeads, but I don't have an alternative. So it became very obvious that advocacy is not enough, and that what really is needed was a new way of looking at this problem. And so anytime when you have a problem like this, you start looking into what the opportunity is. The opportunity is the delta between generation and recovery. Our generation of plastic has exploded. Our ability to recover it is below 4%. And this is in the United States. This is a country that has recovery infrastructure. Around the world, there are countries that have no collection infrastructure whatsoever. And this is compensated by 3 or 4 Scandinavian countries that collect 90% of their plastic trash. Everywhere in the world, there is no collection. And the reality is that this delta has a human face. And this is what we look at every day when we travel around the world. This little girl lives with her family in the tent, that blue tent on top of the trash, and this is the landfill in Roatan. The landfill is growing and growing and growing, and people actually created a living out of collecting plastic and recycling it. Except, you know what? In the last year or so, the price of oil had dropped so much that now recycled plastic is more expensive than virgin plastic. So there is no more livelihood in collecting recycled plastic. And so the little girl with her puppy and her family have no money. This here is a mangrove in Honduras. The mangroves are slowly giving space to a place where they take the collected trash and incinerate it, because there is so much of it that now there is no space in the little landfills that were before. Now you see plastic incinerated, except when you incinerate this plastic, that is toxic particulate matter that goes in the air and goes in the water. That's where people fish, and that's where their livelihood comes from. So we said, oh, this is also incineration, and I wanted to show you the little village that just passed the incineration site. So they incinerate it because they need to do something with it, because it's an island. The incineration air goes over the village where kids live and people live, and it's their livelihood. So what do? When you have a problem of that magnitude that clearly cannot be resolved with behavior change alone, that clearly cannot be resolved with bans and policies alone, it's time to think of it differently. So we've created Think Beyond Plastic, and Think Beyond Plastic sources innovation. It creates the Impact Investment Network to actually fund that kind of innovation. And it basically brings basic market forces to resolve this problem, which is an environmental problem, but with a long-term economic benefit. Because you can't just throw money at this and expect that it will solve the problem. The problem continues to grow. And in addition, we work on creating public policies that support the innovators and entrepreneurs. So Here is what I wanted to show you. Is there an opportunity in this market? And this is the conversation we have with our innovators, because since we launched Think Beyond Plastic, we've created a whole accelerator class of businesses working on innovation and solutions to plastic pollution. This represents the segments in the plastic production. The orange bubbles in the top are single-use disposable packaging. So when you add this to the blue bubbles on the bottom, which is kind of others, which is a bit of everything else in the plastic production, you will see that the single-use and disposable segment of the plastic production is the fastest growing segment in this industry. So we're talking about an economic opportunity of about $300 billion here. Yes, there is money in doing this. There is money in coming up with alternatives. Where are the opportunities? The opportunities are first going to be in alternatives to these plastic bottles. And these plastic bottles come in all shapes and forms. You've seen them in your businesses. They contain liquids, they contain shampoos, they contain different materials. Here we're looking for a different material that's sustainably derived, that's sustainably manufactured, and that actually doesn't have the longevity of a plastic bottle. The next opportunity is agricultural plastic. That doesn't affect your business, but you have all seen it as you go to your communities. This thing is nasty. These are thousands of lengths of plastic that is actually sprayed with pesticides, that it's folded and put in a landfill. So when this washes, it becomes a toxic wash that goes wherever is down from anything, which is the ocean. The other piece is the Keurig K-Cups. So if you run a sustainable business, and if you're a green spot, and if you offer drinks or tea to people who visit, please do not use Keurig K-Cups. There is nothing worse than this. These K-Cups are toxic poison pills. And the K-Cup itself is made of layered plastic. And when the hot water goes through the layered plastic into the coffee or the tea they make, you basically get a toxic cocktail. The use of Keurig is incompatible with sustainable alternatives. And we already are working on an alternative for these K-Cups that is made of gas, that is made of agricultural waste, and can handle that kind of exposure to hot water. But the most important thing right now for you to know is that the Keurig coffee makers contain water that is exposed to bisphenol A, because all of the plastic in the coffee maker contains bisphenol A, and the K-Cups are even worse than that. The other thing that we're asking you to not use, this is layered styrofoam. Layered styrofoam is about as bad as it gets. And some of you may wonder why styrofoam is allowed in states that have banned styrofoam, and it's because Starbucks has gotten a special exemption to continue to use this because they're so popular. So please do everything possible not to use these. I know this is difficult because right now we don't have a solution for you, but we have several companies at the accelerator who are working on an alternative, and their great challenge is to bring the price point to the one that this is. Some other opportunities, medical plastic waste. And medical plastic waste is really, really a bad deal. This is essentially something that gets incinerated in the hospitals after singular use. So not only increases the use of single-use plastic, but it's toxic particulate stuff. And something that you all can recognize, not just the packaging, but the stuff that's inside of these containers. So the packaging for all of these contains phthalates. And this is well known, and people who are into sustainability understand and know the problem with this. We're working on a number of sustainable packaging that will replace this conventional plastic packaging. We're looking into all sorts of interesting alternatives like short shelf life packaging, stuff that comes out of, again, agricultural waste. We have different companies creating the new generation plastic out of methane. So it's all interesting, it's all coming, and it's happening. The other piece that's in it is the contents. As you know, microbeads have been a subject of a big conversation and debate. California finally banned microbeads starting 2020. But microbeads is nothing else than the scrubbing agent inside. And that scrubbing agent used to be natural stuff, you know, corals and shredded bone and things like this. They began to use plastic relatively recently. So in terms of the providers of the creams and the lotions, there is a lot going on, and just look for stuff that has no microbeads and understand that this is the direction where the industry is going. Soon enough, this will be, in Europe, the big product lines, Revlon and Estee Lauder, are already removing microbeads from their products. So it's important for you to know. Lids, for those of you who are not in the business, you probably don't know that the lids are different plastic than the bottles. So the lids are polypropylene, the bottles are often PET. So in order to recycle a bottle, you actually have to take the lid from the bottle and they're recycled separately. Who does that? Nobody. So we're looking for an alternative for a sustainable material for the lids. This is, by the way, Coca-Cola's dirty little secret. And the reason Coca-Cola is involved in all of these actions and supporting us and supporting innovation search is because no big brand wants their brand to be associated with trash. And despite the fact that they will never go off and agree, and Keurig would never tell you that they agree that their K-cups are toxic, they know it. They're very well aware of it, and they're searching for alternatives. And utensils. Whatever you do not use plastic utensils. There are available utensils on the market coming very soon, some of them from one of our accelerator companies that are made of wood particles. That stuff that's made of potatoes, that doesn't work. Despite the fact that it's compostable, it needs industrial composting facilities, which almost never exist, so please don't use it. Try to use wood particle ones, or if at all possible, something that's washable. I know it's expensive. Companies are coming on board. Aveda, who you all know, is actually on our advisory board. And Aveda has been very cognizant of the dangers that their plastic packaging represents, both to the contents and to the environment. So Aveda has been working very carefully into assessment of the raw material. What's the packaging made of? How recyclable is it? What is the possibility for collecting this material so they can actually recycle it? What is the final end of life? Where might it go? And is it natural? Can it mimic somehow the processes in nature? And here is just a picture of some of the products that are coming on the market that come from companies from our accelerator. There is bioplastic, there is that ubiquitous six-pack that you may have seen on top of the soft drinks. This one is made out of cardboard. There are materials that are non-toxic. We have an alternative for this, which we're not allowed to use the brand name. We have an alternative for this, which we're not allowed to use the brand name. But they're all made of sustainable materials, natural materials. And what I wanted to show you, finally, is these are the faces of some of the entrepreneurs. Right now, there is a class of entrepreneurs, about 15 entrepreneurs with their innovations, who are enrolled in our first business accelerator. They're getting lessons, they're getting exposure to impact investors, venture capitalists, material scientists, in helping them figure out how to get their product to the market. And we firmly believe that this is the only way we're going to solve this problem. For you, as providers and as people who buy some of these products and use them, and for all of us as consumers. And last but not least, on the topic of Start Small, we have small projects around the world that solve a big problem. So in Haiti and in Honduras and in the Mesoamerican Reef, we've started a project to deploy some of these businesses and some of these solutions, bundle them with public policies that ban plastic bags and plastic bottles but bring alternatives, and bring civil society on board through education and outreach. And all of this is to reduce the plastic footprint throughout the Mesoamerican Reef. It is a big part of the world. It's not the whole world, but it's a small step in the right direction. And more projects like this will come in the Caribbean and in the rest of the world. So this is our innovation ecosystem, and I apologize if I went long, but I get excited about what we do. So I have my card there. If I can be of any more help, my colleague or I, please let me